Avery Tate sits alone in her bridal finery, a vision of delicate beauty trapped in a nightmare. Her groom, the powerful tycoon Elliot Foster, lies in a vegetative state, and this wedding is nothing more than a desperate act by a grieving mother to secure her son's legacy before he passes.
As the ceremony nears, Avery clings to her phone, waiting for a sign from Cole, Elliot's nephew, and the man she secretly loves. She had begged him to elope, but the silence from his end is a cold omen that her hope for a life of her own choosing is rapidly slipping away.
A shocking discovery shatters Avery's heart. Through a cracked door, she overhears Cole and her sister, Cassandra, laughing at her expense. Their betrayal is absolute. They have been having an affair, and Cole's love was merely a tool to manipulate her into this forced marriage. The grief and betrayal transform Avery. Realizing she has been a pawn for her stepmother and a fool for her lover, she wipes away her tears. The naive girl who suffered in silence dies in that hallway, replaced by a woman with eyes as cold as ice, ready to seize control of her own destiny. In a display of iron will, Avery walks the aisle alone. Before a bewildered crowd, she speaks her own vows and places the ring on her finger. She is now Mrs. Foster, the wife of the most powerful man in Avonsville, and she will use her new status to take back everything that was stolen from her. The atmosphere turns chilling as Cole stumbles back, paralyzed by the piercing gaze of the unconscious Elliot. Under the glow of a crystal chandelier, Avery watches in a daze as her former lover flees the room in a cold sweat, leaving her alone with a husband who was supposed to be dying, yet feels dangerously present. Mrs. Cooper gently shatters the hope of a miracle, explaining that Elliot's open eyes are merely a reflex of his vegetative state. Despite the reassurance, a lingering unease settles over Avery. She asks to keep the lights on, unable to shake the terrifying feeling of being watched by a man who cannot move. In the silence of the night, Avery whispers her deepest fears to the unresponsive Elliot, warning him that his family's greed will destroy his legacy. But as she speaks, the impossible happens. Elliot slowly closes his eyes. Avery's heart thumps in her chest as she realizes he might be conscious, trapped, and listening to every word. Lying beside her silent husband, Avery's fear transforms into a cold, steely resolve. She is now Mrs. Foster, and while Elliot remains in this state, she has the power she needs. She vows to use her new status to reclaim everything she lost and make those who wronged her pay a bitter price. At the Foster mansion, the air is thick with hidden agendas. Rosalie Foster presents Avery with a stunning bracelet, a gift that feels more like a gilded shackle. Avery accepts it with a polite smile, playing the part of the obedient wife, while secretly planning her ascent within a family that views her as nothing more than a pawn. In the shadow of the Foster family's immense wealth, Avery faces a high-stakes interrogation. Her relatives worry she's too young to be a mother, but the matriarch, Rosalie, has a different plan. She wants Avery to bear an heir for her comatose son, Elliot, to secure the family legacy. Avery delivers a shock to everyone in the room. Without a moment's hesitation, she agrees to the pregnancy. To her, this isn't just about a fortune. It's a strategic move to ensure that her treacherous ex-boyfriend, Cole, never gains control of the Foster estate. Outside the mansion, the air is thick with tension as Cole corners Avery. He makes a desperate and scandalous suggestion that she carry his child instead and pass it off as Elliot's. His greed is palpable, but Avery's disgust for him has never been stronger. Avery shuts Cole down with a chilling warning. She reminds him that Elliot's ruthless associates are still watching, and any attempt at fraud would result in a deadly outcome. Leaving him shaken and speechless, Avery prepares to fulfill her end of the bargain. The weight of her decision becomes real as Avery is ushered into a private medical wing. Surrounded by doctors and clinical equipment,
She faces the physical reality of her commitment. Her heartbeat quickens as the procedure to secure her place in the foster family begins.
As the golden leaves of autumn fall over Avonsville, Avery continues her quiet life in the foster mansion. Caring for the comatose Elliot has become her daily ritual, a routine marked by soft whispers and a growing one-sided familiarity with the man who lies motionless before her. During a routine evening, Avery tenderly applies face cream to Elliot's skin, chatting to him as if he could hear her. She touches his arms and legs, marveling at his strength and teasing him about his stoic reputation, never expecting the silence to be broken.
The stillness shatters when Elliot's eyes suddenly snap open, glowing like amber gemstones. For the first time, they aren't empty. They are filled with a terrifying mix of anger and suspicion. When he speaks in a low, husky voice to ask who she is, Avery recoils in absolute shock.
Panic and joy collide as Avery rushes to call for help. Within minutes, the once silent mansion is flooded with people. Doctors and family members crowd the room, witnessing what can only be described as a medical miracle, while Elliot's mother collapses from the sheer weight of her relief. While the family celebrates his return, Avery remains frozen at the doorway, paralyzed by the chilling aura Elliot radiates. He sits up, back against the headboard, his gaze sharp and predatory. The man who was once a helpless patient has returned, and he is more intimidating than she ever imagined. Avery's world is turned upside down when the man she thought would never wake, Elliot, suddenly returns to consciousness. He is no longer a sleeping beast, but a looming threat, radiating a cold, dangerous energy that sends her reeling back in shock and fear. Banished to a guest room for the night, Avery is left alone with her racing thoughts. The realization that Elliot is awake shatters her expectations and leaves her trapped in a mansion who views her as a hostile intruder rather than a wife. The next morning, the domestic peace of the mansion is replaced by a heavy silence. Despite her overwhelming dread, Avery is encouraged by the maid, Mrs. Cooper, to face her husband at the breakfast table and attempt to bridge the cold divide between them. At the breakfast table, the tension is suffocating. Elliot sits in his wheelchair, exuding an aura of absolute power and indifference, despite his physical condition. When Avery tremulously introduces herself, his gaze is like a bottomless black hole, chilling her to the bone. The encounter turns cruel when Elliot delivers a chilling ultimatum. He demands to know which method she prefers to end her pregnancy, making it clear he has no intention of accepting her or the child. Avery is left frozen, the color draining from her face as she realizes the true nature of the man she married. Avery's world shatters when she learns she is pregnant with Elliot's child, just as they are about to divorce. Panic-stricken and facing medical complications, she is forced to confront a life-altering choice while her baby's survival hangs in the balance. The doctor challenges Avery's desire for an abortion, reminding her of the child's innocence and the rarity of the gift of life. To save the baby, Avery is prescribed immediate bed rest, leaving her torn between her fear of the future and her maternal instinct. Walking out into the blinding sunlight, Avery feels utterly isolated. She knows she must hide the pregnancy at all costs. If Elliot finds out, his ruthless nature and his bodyguards would leave her with no choice but to terminate. Seeking refuge with her mother at her Uncle Ron's house, Avery is met with a cold and mocking reception. Her Aunt Miranda's bitter comments about her empty-handed arrival remind Avery that her status has fallen, and she is no longer welcome. The scene turns into a heated confrontation as Avery's mother, Laura, tries to defend her daughter from Miranda's insults. Realizing the precariousness of her mother's living situation, Avery feels the crushing weight of her reality. She is truly alone in this fight. Seizing a moment of silence in the mansion, Avery sneaks into Elliot's forbidden study. With a racing heart, she uses his unprotected computer to send a crucial file, her hands trembling with every click as she races against time. Success turns to dread when a slip of the mouse opens a file she was never meant to see. Avery stares at the screen, her eyes wide with shock as she stumbles upon Elliot's dark, hidden secret, a discovery that leaves her breathless and reeling. Despite her fear, a small victory arrives when she receives a payment for her work. The money offers a brief glimmer of hope for her independence, momentarily masking the anxiety of having trespassed into her husband's private world. Alone in her room, Avery shares a tearful, whispered moment with her unborn child, torn between maternal love and a harsh reality. But her peace is shattered when Mrs. Cooper bursts in with terrifying news. Elliot has discovered her intrusion and is in a blind rage. The moment of reckoning arrives as Avery steps out to face the man she fears most. The elevator doors slide open to reveal Elliot, his presence radiating a cold, dangerous fury that makes her heart thud with the realization that there may be no escape from his wrath. The atmosphere is heavy with dread as Rosalie pushes open the door to find Avery in a state of total collapse. Huddled against the wall, pale and trembling, Avery looks like a ghost of her former self, her lips cracked and her eyes glazed from days of isolation. The horrifying truth emerges as Mrs. Cooper brings a glass of milk to the starving girl. Rosalie realizes with a surge of fury that her son, Elliot, has been using starvation as a weapon, punishing Avery by stripping away her most basic human needs. In the grand living room, a bitter confrontation unfolds. Rosalie demands answers, but Elliot remains a statue of ice, claiming his cruelty is a justified response to Avery's mistakes. He is indifferent to her suffering, viewing his actions as a mercy compared to the violence he might have otherwise chosen. The stress of the argument reaches a breaking point. Rosalie's health fails under the weight of her son's coldness, and she collapses as she gasps for breath. The house is thrown into a panic as the woman who was just discharged from the hospital is rushed back in an ambulance. As the chaos of the household shifts to the hospital, Avery sits in the quiet guest room, slowly regaining her strength with a bowl of oatmeal. Mrs. Cooper gently combs her hair, offering a bittersweet comfort. As long as Rosalie lives, Avery has a shield against Elliot's cold-hearted wrath. Avery sits in a daze in the sterile hospital corridor, clutching a life-altering ultrasound. She is pregnant with twins, a low-probability miracle that the Foster's doctors treated as a mere transaction. Now, with the threat of divorce looming, the weight of this secret life rests solely on her shoulders. A frantic phone call shatters Avery's silence. Her mother's voice, thick with desperation, delivers a devastating blow. Her father is dying. Caught between her own secret pregnancy and a family tragedy, Avery rushes toward the exit, her world spinning out of control. Avery returns to a home filled with chaos and bitterness. She confronts her stepmother, Wanda, demanding to know why the family's wealth wasn't used to save her father. The cold revelation that the money was spent on debts, leaving her father to die in a bedroom rather than a hospital, cuts deeper than any physical wound. By her father's bedside, Avery holds his cold hand as he gasps for his final breaths. His last words are a trembling apology for failing her and her mother. As his hand goes limp, a piercing cry of grief fills the house, marking the end of her childhood and the start of a lonely, uncertain future. The rain falls relentlessly on the day of the funeral, mirroring Avery's internal desolation. With very few mourners present, she stands as a solitary figure against the gray sky. In a matter of days, she has become a wife, a mother-to-be, and an orphan, pushed into a corner by a life that demands she grow up too soon. The opulent silence of the Foster mansion is shattered when Avery Tate slams her door in a fit of rage, leaving behind a broken $30,000 bottle of wine and a room full of stunned socialites. Despite the deafening noise, the formidable Elliot Foster remains eerily composed, his calm demeanor masking a brewing storm. Tensions rise as Chelsea Tierney, desperate to reclaim Elliot's attention, attempts to disparage Avery. However, Elliot delivers a chilling warning. Though their divorce is imminent, Avery is still under his protection. He makes it clear that he is the only one allowed to challenge her, leaving Chelsea trembling in his wake. The party loses its luster as Elliot abruptly departs, leaving his guests to gossip about the fiery temper of the woman who has managed to unsettle the city's most powerful man. As the wine flows, the socialites wonder how long Avery can survive in a world that seems determined to see her fail. Alone in the cold luxury of a guest room, Avery's defiant mask finally shatters. The weight of her father's recent death and the echo of his final apology overwhelm her, turning her anger into a river of silent, agonizing tears as she collapses into her grief. Exhausted by the emotional turmoil, Avery eventually drifts into a deep, heavy sleep. While the mansion falls quiet, the invisible threads connecting her to Elliot Foster tighten, signaling that her battle for independence has only just begun. A brief moment of tension crackles in the air as Elliot reaches out from his car, handing Avery a pack of tissues. His lingering warmth stays with her long after his car disappears, leaving her alone with her thoughts and a sense of uncharacteristic vulnerability. Avery enters Tate Industries, a company that appears calm and professional on the surface. Despite the silent halls and busy employees, she knows the atmosphere is a fragile illusion, masking a deep financial crisis that threatens to destroy her father's legacy. Inside the boardroom, the reading of the will reveals a hidden empire. Avery watches in disbelief as the lawyer lists property after property, luxury vehicles, and vast assets she never knew her father possessed, painting a picture of a man far wealthier than he ever let on. The revelation of wealth is short-lived, as the vice president delivers a crushing blow. The company is $125 million in debt. Betrayal runs deep, as Avery learns her own stepmother's family embezzled the fortune, leaving the company on the brink of collapse. Avery is faced with a heart-wrenching ultimatum: walk away from the debt or risk everything to save her father's life's work. With the suggestion of a desperate loan hanging in the air, she must decide if she has the strength to fight for a dying company against impossible odds. Avery returns to the Foster mansion under the cover of night, the autumn wind biting at her skin. Dressed in a striking, strappy red dress that contrasts sharply with her morning attire, she has no idea that a pair of cold, watchful eyes is waiting for her in the shadows of the living room. Inside, the silence is suffocating. Elliot sits motionless on the couch, his black shirt matching the gloom of his expression. With a voice like ice, he commands her to approach, his presence filling the room with an intimidating aura that makes Avery's heart race in fear. Accusations fly as Elliot's jealousy flares. He grips Avery's wrist with terrifying force, convinced she has been out drinking with another man. Avery's tears fall as she struggles against his hold, her cries of pain falling on deaf ears as he demands the truth about her night. In a sudden, aggressive movement, Elliot yanks Avery into his arms. He leans in close, his nose brushing the crook of her neck as he searches for the scent of alcohol. Instead, he is met with a soft, milky fragrance that momentarily stuns his senses, leaving Avery frozen in his grasp. Fueled by anger at his treatment, Avery attempts a silent act of defiance, testing the sensation in his legs with a sharp pinch. But the moment of rebellion is cut short when Elliot pulls back, his dark eyes clouding with a new suspicion, as he realizes her clothes carry a scent that doesn't belong to him. In the solitude of his room, Elliot Foster broods over his complicated feelings for Avery Tate. As his nurse tends to a bruise she left on his thigh, Elliot finds himself haunted by her tears and the lingering scent of her perfume, struggling to understand why this woman, his soon-to-be ex-wife, stirs such deep, unsettling emotions within him. The next morning, Avery attempts to avoid a confrontation by waking up early, but she finds Elliot already waiting in the dining room. The atmosphere is thick with tension as they share a silent, uncomfortable breakfast under the watchful eye of the housekeeper, Mrs. Cooper. Breaking the silence, Avery demands payment for the dress Elliot destroyed the night before. She stands her ground, refusing to be intimidated, and shows him the bruised wrist he caused as proof of his aggression, demanding an extra fee for her medical expenses. Elliot settles the debt with a digital wire transfer, but Avery's anger only partially subsides. Even as the money hits her account, she makes it clear that a financial transaction cannot buy her forgiveness for his temper, leaving Elliot in a state of quiet, contemplative silence. With the financial dispute settled but their hearts still at odds, the two prepare to maintain their charade for the outside world. They set off to visit Elliot's mother, Rosalie, entering a new arena of family politics, where every word spoken or withheld carries a dangerous weight. Inside the suffocating silence of the luxury car, Elliot's words cut like glass. He delivers a chilling warning. He wants no children, and his eyes burn with a cold, demonic intensity as he tells Avery never to test his patience. Avery feels as though she is falling into a bottomless pit, terrified by the man she once thought she knew. Despite the fear, a secret flame of defiance flickers in Avery's heart. She knows she is pregnant, but she resolves that these children will belong only to her. In her mind, she makes a vow. She will raise them alone, and as far as they are concerned, their father is a man who never existed. The tension boils over as they clash over their fractured marriage. Elliot mocks her past, and Avery retorts with bitter honesty, calling their life together suffocating. She pushes for a quick divorce, desperate to escape his control before her changing body betrays her secret to the world. When the car finally stops at the mansion, Avery flees as if escaping a cage. She doesn't look back, leaving Elliot to watch her retreat with a cold, lingering gaze. As she catches her breath in the safety of the house, Elliot turns his back on their home, heading toward the cold sanctuary of his office. Avery arrives at Tate Industries, ready to fight for her father's legacy. With the banks turning their backs on her, she begins the grim task of selling off assets to pay off crushing debts. She is a woman on the edge, standing alone against financial ruin while protecting the life growing inside her. The air in the Foster mansion turns ice cold as Elliot questions Avery about a mysterious bottle of pills. Avery's heart hammers against her ribs, but she manages to deflect his suspicion before scurrying to her room to hide the prenatal vitamins that could expose her greatest secret. Alone in her room, Avery realizes she is living on a knife's edge. With her medical reports hidden just feet away from her husband, she feels the crushing weight of the betrothal fees that keep her trapped. The fear of discovery is so intense, it begins to eclipse her own physical hunger. During a quiet dinner, Avery probes the housekeeper, Mrs. Cooper, for information on how to hide a pregnancy. Discovering that some women don't show their bump if they stay thin, Avery makes a desperate vow to restrict her diet, hoping to mask the life growing inside her for as long as possible. In the quiet of the night, Avery examines her medical files. Tomorrow marks the crucial 3-month milestone. As she touches her still flat stomach, the reality of her twin pregnancy feels both invisible and overwhelming, a hidden world she must guard against everyone in the house. Avery navigates the sterile halls of the hospital the next morning, moving through a series of tests in a blur of anxiety. Just as she finishes her appointment and prepares to wait for her results, a sudden tap on her shoulder sends a jolt of pure terror through her. Is her secret finally out? The tension in the cafe is palpable as Chelsea corners Avery, demanding to know the identity of the woman Elliot truly loves. Sensing the danger and complexity of the situation, Avery quickly retreats into a shell of neutrality, realizing that getting involved in Elliot's romantic secrets could jeopardize her own fragile peace. The conversation takes a somber turn as they discuss Elliot's disdain for children. Chelsea admits her willingness to sacrifice motherhood to stay by his side, unaware that Avery is already carrying his secret. Avery watches her with a mix of pity and realization, seeing the high price Chelsea is willing to pay for a man who remains an enigma. In a surprising move that shatters the rivalry, Avery tells Chelsea she would choose her over Elliot any day. This unexpected moment of solidarity disarms Chelsea, melting her icy exterior. For a fleeting moment, the two women find common ground, shifting from enemies to two souls struggling under the shadow of the same powerful man. As their meal ends, the conversation shifts to Avery's crushing reality. $125 million in debt left by her father. Despite Chelsea's advice to walk away and live a simple life, Avery is haunted by the potential of her father's revolutionary work. She stands at a crossroads, torn between the safety of surrender and the agony of ambition. The chapter concludes with Avery in the sterile silence of a doctor's office. As the physician meticulously reviews her medical reports, the air becomes heavy with anticipation. With her divorce looming and a business empire at stake, Avery waits for the words that will define the future of her health and her unborn children. The night air is thick with dust as a luxury Rolls-Royce speeds past Avery, leaving her alone in the shadows. As she watches the blurry red tail lights vanish into the darkness, she wipes away her tears, wondering if the man who controls her life, Elliot, was the one behind the glass. Afraid to face Elliot, Avery stands in the cold courtyard for an hour, staring up at the bright spring stars. She waits in the silence, hoping to blend into the trees until the house goes quiet, her heart heavy with the weight of her complicated situation. From the second floor veranda, Elliot watches her from his wheelchair, a glass of wine in hand. He finds her foolish for braving the cold, yet seeing her misery stirs a strange, unfamiliar feeling in his heart, an emotion he has never felt for the many intelligent people in his circle. The next morning, Avery hurries through breakfast, desperate to escape before Elliot wakes. She admits to the housekeeper, Mrs. Cooper, that she isn't afraid of him. She simply finds him too uncomfortable to face. With a quick goodbye, she flees the house for the safety of her campus. At the university gates, Avery meets her best friend Tammy and delivers a heartbreaking truth. Despite the luxury car that dropped her off, her life has changed forever. She can no longer pursue graduate school, as the shadows of her family's fate and her marriage loom over her future. The tension is thick as Elliot coldly orders Avery to sit. On the coffee table between them, a laptop displays grainy surveillance footage of the bedroom they shared while he was in a vegetative state, exposing the secrets of their private months together. Shock turns to fury as Avery realizes she was being watched every single day. She stands abruptly, pointing at the screen with a trembling hand, her face flushed with a mix of indignation and absolute horror at the violation of her privacy. Elliot reveals a stinging truth. His mother installed the cameras to protect him from abuse while he was helpless. Now that he is awake, he views the footage not as care, but as Avery taking advantage of his defenseless state, his eyes shooting daggers at her. Forced to face the evidence, Avery watches the screen as it documents her physiotherapy sessions. She looks away in shame, the reality of her intimate interactions with his unconscious body playing back like a weapon used against her. Refusing to back down, Avery desperately tries to explain that her actions were medical, not mischievous. She pleads with him to see that her constant care and massages were the very things that helped him recover, fighting to reclaim her dignity. Avery wakes up late at Elliot's mansion, stumbling into the living room only to find it filled with his stern-faced business associates. Dressed in a simple nightgown with her hair disheveled, she is caught in a moment of paralyzing embarrassment as the group of powerful men stare her down in silence. In the dining room, Avery is forced to overhear the cruel gossip of Elliot's friends. They mock her father's legacy and her desperate attempts to save Tate Industries, calling her reckless and dismissing her company's self-driving technology as a total failure. The weight of their words leaves her feeling isolated and small. Seeking a sanctuary, Avery escapes to a quiet cafe to bury herself in her studies. Amidst the hum of the city, she struggles with the realization of her limited power, trying to balance her academic goals with the crushing pressure of her family's debt and the mockery of the elite. A mysterious email from an anonymous sender, known only as Mr. Z, suddenly changes everything.
He claims to be interested in investing in her father's controversial self-driving system. Skeptical and weary of scams, Avery wonders if this is a genuine lifeline or a cruel trap designed to exploit her desperation. The mystery deepens when Mr. Z sends proof of a staggering bank balance of $200 million. Avery's heart races as she stares at the impossible numbers, questioning the reality of the situation. Is this the miracle her family business needs, or is she playing a dangerous game with a ghost? Avery enters the lavish private room, expecting to meet the mysterious Mr. Z, only to be paralyzed by shock. Sitting in the shadows, bathed in the dim light of the bar, is Elliot Foster, the man who shouldn't be here. As Avery tries to retreat, Elliot's voice cuts through the air like ice. He questions her presence in such a place, his suspicion growing as he watches her struggle to maintain her composure under his heavy stare. Panic sets in as Avery reaches for the exit, only to realize the door is locked from the outside. Trapped in the gilded cage of the private room, she is forced to turn back and face the man who seems determined to control her world. Elliot demands she sit and drink with him, his eyes bloodshot and menacing. Avery is caught in a terrifying dilemma. She cannot drink, but refusing Elliot might be just as dangerous as revealing her secrets. Cornered, Avery finally confesses her lie about the meeting, explaining her desperate search for an investor to save her father's company. As she looks down at Elliot, the line between her protector and her enemy becomes dangerously blurred.